Hello, welcome to the asyst Financial Software demonstration. Right now you're looking at the main screen that you would see when you log on to our software. Just so you know, we've got over 30 different integrated applications, and today we're going to focus on the financials. So I'm going to select the dollar sign. Behind the dollar sign there are several financial modules that you can pick and choose which ones you want to implement. So for instance, let's say you outsource your payroll, you wouldn't have to license that module, so you get to pick and choose. The look and feel of everything you're going to see today is the same. The way our menus are set up are things you do daily, we have under the Daily tab. Things you do more once a month, once a year, you're going to see those items under the Periodic tab. Reports. Each application has a set of reports. We do keep unlimited history, so if you want to run a financial from 10 years ago, you've got the ability to do that. All of the reports you can print to the screen, you can email, you can put in Word or Excel or create a PDF. So we'll take a look at that as well. Inquiries. Each application has a set of inquiries. We do keep unlimited history. I'm going to show you how not only can you do a search, but you can drill down and see detailed information. As an example, things coming in from utilities or from tax billing or payroll. You can see those transactions in the accounting system. Each application also has a set of tables. This is where you get started. So once you set your tables up, you're not going to spend a lot of time there. So what I thought we would do is start with the general ledger. It's the heart of the system. All of the different applications can post into the general ledger, like tax billing, utility billing, courts, permits, all those different applications. You can also decide to post in detail so that you can see customers billed, employees paid in the accounting system. What I thought we would do first is take a look at a journal entry. Now keep in mind, this is the only time that you're going to debit and credit. Anywhere in the system you might see this little search box. All the fields are searchable. So if you know limited information, you can search, such as dollar amount, date range, description, or you might even know where did the transaction come from. So let it know limited information and then you can do a search. I'm going to bring up this transaction. Now, a couple of key things. If you look at our toolbar, it's like any other Microsoft application, so the navigation's identical. Let's say you have a question. You can actually hit the telephone and log a support call in the accounting software. And we know exactly what the menu is, the option that you were doing. You can type in a question, and we're going to ask you, do you prefer an email or a phone call? So it is easy to get help. You can also call us. Now, a key thing about our financial system is it's a date-driven system. We give you the ability to post to any period. So let's say it's July, but I want to post to April. I've got the ability to do that. Now, I can also lock down months so that I can't post to it. We do have the ability to open a fiscal year, close a fiscal year as many times as you need to. What's really nice is, let's say your year ends December 31st, and you want to go ahead and close your year January the 5th, you can do that. Even though auditors won't be on site for 8 weeks, you can reopen that previously closed year. So open and closing, very easy. Another key thing is we're going to make sure debits and credits equal. We're not going to let you post a transaction if you're out of balance. We also have an integrated project accounting. You're able to tag grants and projects in journals, in accounts payable, purchase order, and even payroll time can be tagged to a project. What's really nice about our projects is you're not having to code that into your chart of accounts. So it is something you define, you can describe it, you can have unlimited tasks, unlimited categories, and as you process transactions, you can tag things to a project, and at any point you can run a financial for the life of the project. So it is tightly integrated. Now you're going to also see recurring. We have the ability to do recurring journal entries. When we get into purchase orders, recurring purchase orders, and recurring payables. This is something that you would simply set up a template in the tables so that as you process those journal entries, you're just having to enter in dollar amounts. It defaults the accounts. Now, in addition, you can look at things before you post or after you post. Let's say you want to take a look at entries that came over from utility billing. You're going to be able to select that. Now you could also select a certain period or a date range. I've even got a user ID, but I can look at those transactions and I can actually just print the report on the screen. As I mentioned earlier, all the reports, you've got this ability to email, go to Excel, go to Word, create a PDF. As I mentioned, if you like Microsoft, you're going to love asyst. So that's the ability. Now, we do give you the option to post in detail. You can also direct post. So that's up to you on how you want things coming into the general ledger. Let's take a look at periodic. This is where you're going to do your budgeting, you're going to close your year, things that you might do, periodically or once a year. Now, on the budgeting, a lot of our clients like to use Excel, and they'll actually use Budget Excellence. It gives you the ability to export your accounts to Excel, and I'm going to go ahead and select this option right here. And when you export, you could say, do you want to do everything, or maybe a certain fund or certain types of accounts? So you can be selective on what you do export to Excel to begin the budgeting process. I went ahead and just did everything, and I'm going to hit Excel. And down here in my toolbar is a worksheet that it created. And what we have is all of our accounts. I know the type of accounts. I've got the previous year budget. I've got year-to-date actuals. I've even got a breakdown by months as well. But I'm actually using Excel to create my new budget. Once I go through the entire process and the council comes up with the final budget, I'm going to be able to import in that final column right into the accounting software. So there's an option to just upload into accounting. You can even add an account in Excel and import that into your chart of accounts. But once we have this imported, we're going to track it. So in other words, as you pay your bills, we're going to give you a warning if you're over your budget. When you run your financial statements, we're going to give you a comparison by line item. As you do searches, we're going to give you a comparison. So I've got inquiries that will give you the budget availability. So that's all integrated once you get the budget in. Let's say you don't want to use Excel. We do have budgeting built right into the general ledger. We've got budget worksheets. You can do across the board changes. So the key is once the budget is in, we're going to track it. Now we also have the ability to do a budget revision. Let's say you need to change your budget. We're going to be able to track what you changed and why you changed it. We're going to also give you the ability to run on your financial statements the original budget or the revised budget. And we even have a report that you can run for a range of years to see, okay, what was the budget, what was the actual, and show me any changes so that you can see any trends. So if you do need to track budget changes, we can do it very easily. Wizard. We have a wizard to close the year. It's very easy to close it. It's very easy to reopen it. So most of our accounts, they want to go ahead and close the year because they've got a council meeting, but they know their auditors won't be in for 8 weeks. This gives them the ability to move forward, but then reopen when they are ready for those adjusting entries. Now, we also have the ability to reverse entries. Now, if I knew the number, I would just type it in. Let's say I don't, and I want to look up an entry here, or if I know like a dollar amount or a date range, or maybe even a description, I can search. Once you find the transaction that you want to reverse, all you have to do is hit post. This system's going to make the offsetting entry. So it's very easy to reverse something. You're not having to manually back it out. The system makes that entry for you. So those are things that you might do on a periodic basis. Reports, these all come standard. For most of our municipalities, these reports get them exactly what they want. An example here is if you're using purchase orders, this particular report will show you not only what did you budget, what have you spent, but you're going to also know are there any outstanding purchase orders. And what's true with all of our reports is I can slice this out based on my chart of accounts. So as an example, I may only want to pull this out for a certain fund. I could do that. Or maybe just a certain department or a range of accounts. So depending on how you have defined your chart of accounts, you're able to slice out financial statements. So what's nice about this is you're going to know by line item, what have you spent, what the budget is, but you're going to also know, are there any outstanding purchase orders? So it gives you a better feel for what money is available. Now, on our purchase order module, it is tightly integrated with accounts payable, so you're not doing any extra work, but you get the budget comparison here so that you know if you do have outstanding purchase orders. Another one that everybody likes is the statement of revenues and expenditures. What's really nice is, as I mentioned, you can run it for your revised budget or your original budget. Or do you want a previous year comparison? And what I really like is we're going to give you the option to see the budget comparison in percentage of budget or dollar amounts. So as I said, you can run this for any year. And I'm going to grab all funds, and I can decide where I want subtotals. But this particular report is going to give you a report for all your funds, or you could pick out certain funds, and you're going to know by line item what's the budget, what's the balance, and on the far right-hand side, the remaining budget percentage. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a true fund accounting solution. I'm able to search and report on all of my funds in the system. We also do like a combining balance sheet. I can combine multiple funds or do a range of funds. I have this historical budget report that you can run for a range of years, and you can see not only, what did you budget, have you had any changes, and compare it to the actual. So once again, you can see, are there any trends, and I'm able to pull this out for a certain fund or a certain department to see what's going on. Now, for most of our customers, as I mentioned, these reports get them everything they need. However, we do have a tool called Report Excellence. Let's say you've got a board and they like to see things a certain way, and right now you're currently having to create that financial in Excel. With this solution, you can create that workbook once and directly link it to the accounting software. You're not having to redo that spreadsheet each month. So, like I said, if you like Excel, it is tightly integrated. We also have the ability to very easily export out a file of detailed transactions. This is perfect for, let's say, your auditors, before they come on site, you might want to export a file of all the detail that happened in a certain year, or maybe multiple years, or you may need certain specific dates, not really periods. Either way, I can export out a file. And I can even be selective. Maybe we only want to see revenues or expenditures. I'm going to say in this example, let's just grab everything. In addition, I could say, well, maybe just the general fund, or maybe just the police department. Once again, I'm going to grab it all. And in just a second, it's going to create a file that I can take a look at. And this would be something, as I mentioned, you can email to your auditor, and it literally is every transaction that happened for the dates that you entered. So I can see, the account number, the description, where did it come from? Is it something from utilities and courts, tax billing? What type of transaction? Is it a receipt, a disbursement? I've got all the key post dates. I even pick up document numbers, so the invoice number or the receipt number. I've got purchase order information, if it is one, vendor information, and on the far right-hand side, I've got debits and credits, and I also even pick up projects or grants. So it's that easy just to grab detail for any date range to see what's going on. And like I said, we can put it right in Excel. Now, let's take a look at some of the inquiries. We have some wonderful inquiries. As I mentioned, we do keep unlimited history. And let's take a look at a couple examples. One is, let's say that the only thing I know is I'm looking for a $25 entry. I don't know where it came from or when it happened. I'm kind of looking for a needle in a haystack. I can search. So let's go ahead and take a look at this option here. What we're looking at is, this is the journal that got created. And if you notice, it says source. Where did it originate from? And I'm going to go ahead and say, show me more. I'm going to drill down to detail. So I'm going to actually go and take a look at the status of the check, the accounting. I can even look at the invoice that I attached. We give you the ability to attach documents, and most of our applications have this capability. So you're no longer filing, the image stays with the transaction. So let's say that, if you're looking at this, you've got all the detail that you need. Now, here's another inquiry. Once again, I could look at any year. I could look at any account. I can further narrow the search if I know it's a revenue and I know it's in Fund 2. So if I knew more, or if I knew the exact number, it would bring it up immediately. So let's look at water sales. So once again, I could go to any year. I have a report that I can print in detailed or summary, and I can look at literally everything that went in and out of this account. So if you had the old manual system, everything in and out for that year. But I want to know more. Let's say I want to go into February and see, what makes up that total. And I can see here I did one billing from the utility billing, and here's the total credit. I want to know more. Here is the journal that got created for you from the billing system. And a lot of systems will do this. However, we take it a step further. We give you the ability to post in detail. So we're in the accounting system, but I can see what happened in the utility billing and drill down and see that detailed information. So once again, very specific and easy to do. We also have another inquiry that I really like because it starts at the highest levels. Once again, I could do it for any year, any period. I'm going to be able to see all my funds. I've only got 2 set up. You could have as many as you want. I'm going to look at the general fund. Now, once I look at the general fund, I can see my departments. Once again, I've got 2 departments. You can have as many as you want. And I'm looking at expenditures, but I can see the budget, the balance, the year-to-date activity. I could switch and look at revenue and other things as well. But if I drill down, these are all the detailed transactions that happened in that period. And I could see we've got things coming from the general ledger. We've got receipts at the counter. Let's take a look at this payroll run. So just like on the utility example, here's a journal that gets created for you after you run a payroll run. So I know the source of its payroll. I'm going to look and see more. So now I can see these are the employees that were paid that created that journal. So I've got summary information. I can actually take it one step further and go right to the check stub. So I can see the individual check stub, and all of this happened in payroll, but I'm able to see it in the general ledger. So once again, we're posting in detail, and it's a true fund accounting solution. One last inquiry here. Once again, tell me what you know. You can search. And on this example, I'm going to look at, let's say, the business license. So I could see here, what's the budget, what's the actual. If there are outstanding POs, I'm going to know that and the balance. But I can also drill down and see detailed transactions. These are receipts that happened at the counter. I can select any one and see the journal that got created, but I can also see who paid and how they paid for those miscellaneous transactions. So once again, you're going to be able to see all of that in the accounting system. And then the last thing is tables. And as I mentioned, this is where you get started. This is where you set up your chart of accounts. This is where you build your house. You let us know how long is your account number, how many segments. You get to define it. The only rule is fund is at the highest level and object is at the end. But as you notice, you can have up to 9 segments, and I'm only using 3. Once you define a segment, you're able to drill down or pull reports based on those segments. Now, next on the list is purchase orders. Just so you know, we do have it. It will create a purchase order. It will encumber funds. You can also, as you create your purchase orders, if you want a warning, if you're over your budget, you can get that. And we also have online approvals. So you can set up to 3 different levels so that somebody can approve it before you encumber the funds. On this example, you're going to have as many different items and charge it off to as many different accounts. And we also support recurring purchase orders. So those POs that you issue all the time, it will default all the key information like vendor and what you're ordering in the accounting, and you can always make changes to it. Everything you do here is going to flow to accounts payable. You're never going to have to rekey in that information. And it's also going to update the general ledger for those reports so that you will know if you do have outstanding purchase orders. But as I mentioned, it can print a purchase order. You're going to know at any time what's open. There's lots of reports, inquiries. You're going to be able to know, by vendor, by status, what is open. We do have the ability, if you want to roll these to the new year or take them off the books, but it's one of those things, we have it, you can add it at any point, if you're not doing purchase orders today, you just wouldn't license this piece. But everything does flow to accounts payable. Now let's take a look at where you enter in your payables. And we'll get an example here. And what's really nice is this is the screen that you're going to go to enter in all your payables. So you can enter them a little bit each day, all at once. It's totally up to you. Let's say you were looking up a vendor. You can search, and let's say the vendor's not there. I can actually add a vendor on the fly. So I can very quickly add a vendor. I do have different types, different statuses. So those vendors that you hardly ever use, you can make them temporary, or you may have some that are really inactive. You still have all their detailed information, but when you do searches or reports, you can filter based on that status. I can have multiple addresses. We're going to keep track of the 1099s. You can even have discounts. It'll help you take advantage of that. We talked briefly about attachments, but you can have an attachment at the vendor level. So a price list, a contract. If you can attach it in an email, you can attach it to your database. And we even have the ability to set up direct pay information so that you can electronically pay certain vendors. So instead of this vendor getting a paper check, they'll actually get an email letting them know what invoice you just paid, and then they'll know that the funds will be in their account the next day. So they love it, and it certainly simplifies the process. And then these fields here are user definable. But once you, like I said, once you key in the vendor information, we do have the ability to automatically draft payments. So if you have a vendor that's taking it out of your account, we're not going to let you pay the same invoice to the same vendor, so we're going to stop you at that point. If this vendor is one of those electronic vendors, we're going to check that box. So, it'll automatically check it until you change their status, so we know don't do a paper check. This is a feature everybody likes, separate check. You can do that on an invoice by invoice basis. So if the vendor has already sent you one invoice and then the second one you select separate check, we know don't combine those. So you don't have to do a special check run. If you are using POs, this is where you bring it in. We default, invoice date, due dates. Down below here, you've got the amount of the invoice, and then down below, we're charging it off to 4 different accounts, and I happen to be hitting 2 different funds, but I can send that vendor 1 check if I want to. So it really simplifies, especially for those in the audience that are using like QuickBooks or Peachtree. This gives you the ability to hit those funds, but send that vendor 1 check. Now, if you do the attachment right here, like the invoice, it's going to stay with the transaction, so you're not going to have to file it. And as I mentioned, you can also, if you are doing a PO, it brings in all the accounting, and let's say the PO doesn't match the invoice, you can make an adjustment. Now, if there's anybody that needs to use fixed assets, it is integrated. So if I buy a truck, it will create that asset. So if that's a functionality you need, we've got that link from accounts payable to fixed assets. And then up here at the top is the recurring. You're going to have a lot of bills you pay every month. You can create the template so that really all you're doing is maybe changing the dollar amount. So you can do it by percentage, or it can always be the same dollar amount or different, but you can set it up to remember as much information as possible. Now, we haven't paid anything yet, so you're going to enter in your payables a little bit each week, and then at some point, my guess is you'll have an approval meeting, and we have this council approval report that you can run for the meeting. And depending on how you want to run this, maybe by fund and through what date, you're going to be able to get a report of all the payables sorted the way you decided, and you're going to be able to have all that so that you can see what you're paying, when is it due, how much is it. You've got the accounting, the budget, and the balance. So 9 times out of 10, my guess is this report you'll be able to answer all the questions that the council has. So we still haven't paid it yet. Let's say there's a couple of changes. You can come back here and still make changes after that meeting. So let's say at the meeting they decided we're not going to pay this $15,000 invoice and maybe only part of this one. So you could do a partial payment. So it's not too late. Those entries are still in the system. We're just not paying them right now. And then when I'm ready to roll, I'm just going to come back here, and if I want to see how much money I need in all my funds, I have it. I can print my checks, and away we go. If you are electronically paying vendors, we're going to grab all those vendors and create a file that you'll just send to the bank. Every vendor on that file will get an email letting them know you just paid the invoice or multiple invoices, and it'll be in their account the next day. If you ever need to void a check, we make it very easy to void. I know there's a lot of systems out there that you never want to void because it's so hard. With ours, it's really easy. You simply pick the one you want to void. You're going to be able to see what's going to get reversed in accounts payable, what's going to get reversed in the GL, and then you hit void. There's a complete audit trail, and if you do look it up, you'll know this transaction was voided. And as I mentioned earlier, you may lock it down that maybe only one person in your office can void. Reports, tons of reports, lots of inquiries. I'll show you a couple here. One that I really like is, let's say I know the vendor starts with an A. I can search, and I can get all the vendors that start with an A. Or maybe I know the word office is somewhere in the name. I could do star, office, star, and I'll get everything with office in the middle. So lots of ways to find your vendors. Once you find it, I can see every check I've issued, and on the right-hand side, the invoice or invoices that it paid. I can see the status and the attachment. So I can have multiple attachments. So it's really nice. You're not going to the filing cabinet. You're able to see that right here just by double-clicking. So lots of good inquiries. Now, to me, the toughest job you have is your bank reconciliation. And our cash control simplifies that. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to actually create a deposit. And let's say that you want to do a deposit from the cash register, or you can pick and choose what areas, but what it's going to do, it's going to bring in all those transactions so that you can decide which bank do you want to put them in. And I'm going to say, let's just grab them all. I can even do a split deposit. I could do a deposit from a certain cash drawer, but we've already recorded the accounting. What we're doing now is physically creating the deposit transaction, so it'll make it easy to reconcile to that bank statement. So I can go ahead and select these. Now, when it is time to reconcile, we're going to have one place that you're going to be able to have everything. So you're going to have your disbursements, you're going to have your deposits, you're even going to have any journal entries that you've created that affect the bank statement, like your fees and charges, all in one place. Now, if you want to get fancy, we also have the ability to bring in a bank file. We have several different formats, and worst case, you can get one that's comma delimited, but it's going to bring in all the transactions, and it's going to match up everything that it can that's on the bank, that's in your accounting software, so that you're just dealing with a few transactions. Once you complete this process, it will produce a report and letting you know what was cleared and what's still open, that you'll have for your auditor. So once again, I think it simplifies it because it brings everything under one screen. You also can reprint deposit slips. You can run a report to see what deposits have cleared the bank. And this is really nice because you can run a bank statement for any period, and it's going to let you know what was the beginning cash balance, what deposits did you have, and disbursements and closing. So once again, simplifying that process. And there's also a deposit inquiry that I can look up by bank. I can see all the deposits. I can pick any one of these and drill down and see what was in that deposit and where did it come from. So once again, cash control pulls everything together to create those transactions so that you can reconcile your bank statement. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you today is cash receipts, and think of this as point of sale. This is just like a cash register. Most of our accounts have lots of customers that walk into City Hall and they want to make payments. An example might be somebody walks in, they want to pay their utility bill, and they don't know their account number. We can look them up. Do they know their phone number? Do they know their first name, their last name? Any combination, we can search and find that customer. Once we do, it's going to look and bring in the balance. If they're paying 100% of that, you simply accept it. They could pay less. And at the same time, let's say they want to get some sort of a permit, or some other miscellaneous transaction that maybe right now you're doing a manual receipt. I can go ahead and accept that. So I can keep adding on. I could pay a court citation. I could do a tax bill, all on one receipt. Once they are ready to tender, you hit payment, and on the same receipt, you might have 2 checks in cash. It will make change. But what's really nice is it's going to print a receipt. You're going to handle the money once, because what it's going to do is it's going to send the utility payment to the utilities, the courts to the courts, the tax billing, any miscellaneous entry. We're going to create that journal all in one step. Now, we also have the ability, let's say somebody walks in and says, I've got 1 check, what do I owe you? I can actually look them up by name and bring in all the balances. So for instance, if this customer has multiple tax accounts, multiple utilities, an invoice, we're going to be able to see all those balances on one screen that I can pick and choose all, or just pick certain ones. So if you can look up by name. And like I said, it's going to print a receipt. You're going to have reports. So if your auditor wants to know, show me what you receipted last year, I can run a report and sort it several different ways. You know, I can sort it by the receipt number. I can sort it, you know, check, cash, credit card. I can see utility payments together, court payments, tax billing, even account and GL. So depending on how I want to see this, it's going to sort it, you know, by whatever topic, and then I'm going to know how much is going to all the different sub areas. I can also reprint a receipt, but this gives you the ability to handle the money once. It gives, you know, that totally integrated solution. It works with all the other applications. Now, typically in this setting, I'll have another video for payroll. We also have AR for any miscellaneous billing, so if you've got that outside of utility billing. We touched briefly on fixed assets and projects, but just to give you an idea, this gives you an overview of the accounting system. Thank you for attending today.